Greetings and welcome to Education in Focus, powered by Chalkboard News. I'm Tom Gantert, managing editor at the Center Square, which, like Chalkboard News, is owned and operated by the Franklin News Foundation. I'm standing in today for Dan McCallum. Chalkboard is a news website dedicated to issues related to K-12 education. Joining me today is Chalkboard's K-12 editor, Brendan Clary. How are you today, Brendan?
I'm doing well, Dan. Tom, how are you doing?
Pretty good. So you wrote last week about the Chicago Public Schools Board of Education voting on a resolution related to school choice. What was the resolution? And tell us a little bit about what it means for families and students who currently attend charter schools.
Yeah, of course, Tom. Well, so the resolution it's kind of a convoluted sort of guidance. So it's basically pre-guidance for the district's 2025 to 2029 strategic plan. So the way that it was described is that it set the parameters for how they would, sort of plan out the 2025-2029 strategic plan. So it's sort of like a document or a resolution of setting the guiding principles or like the scope of the strategic blueprint. So it's sort of the plan of a plan. So it kind of gets into the bureaucratic weeds there a little bit. But essentially, it sort of had included in it was like a reimagined vision. That's quote, like a quote, a reimagined vision to, quote, transition away from privatization and admissions or enrollment policies and approaches that further stratification and inequity in Chicago public schools and drive student enrollment away from neighborhood schools, end quote. So that's one of the key things contained in there regarding school choice, right? There's other things, other statements kind of guiding the 2025, 2029 broader strategic planning there. But that was sort of the thing that kind of grabbed my attention. And I think is one of the drivers of this, that basically we're going to try to, the school signaling we're going to try to move away from this privatization, this charter school, and put that money toward, neighborhood schools and try to elevate those. So that was an interesting, aspect of it. Essentially too, Elizabeth Todd Brayland, who's vice president of the school board, she basically said that the school choice system is rooted in racism. She said that the system that we operate was built on, a foundation of structural racism and socioeconomic inequality, which he said provided opportunities for some, but that the data that they're relying on showed that it has exacerbated inequities. Basically, they're saying that this system of school choice pits schools against each other, and it also pits students against each other. And so they see it as a big problem there of, like a competition that is dependent on students' test scores. So you have to score high enough to get into some of these competitive schools. And Todd Brayland likened it to the Hunger Games, which, if you're familiar with that, is, where they put young people in an arena as like a political punishment. So that's something that Mayor Brandon Johnson used in some campaigning for his run as mayor there. More broadly, it's not really clear exactly what it's going to mean for students in the district yet. The school board has said, like, we're not going to close charter schools yet, but this does indicate that they're going to try to move away from that. So it's hard to say exactly what the effect of this is going to be long term, but it does signal this support from the Chicago Public Schools Board of Education to move away from the charter schools. So it's kind of unclear at this point what exactly is going to happen, but it did sort of clarify the board's position on this.
What have people been saying about the board's attempts to move away from school choice?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's an opinion piece from a former Chicago Public Schools CEO, Janice Jackson. She criticized the board. She basically said that this is putting political ideologies over the facts. So she said that if the Chicago Public Schools Board of Education was concerned about learning more about the school choice, they would, create a commission to analyze the impact that this would have on minority students. And that's what she said, is that this will disparately impact students of color that have been sort of marginalized, and that the Chicago Public Schools Board of Education is trying to reach with some of these measures and sort of end inequities. And so that's what she said, is that this is actually going to, that Black and brown students, that's Janice Jackson's words, they value choice, and so do other decision makers in the city. But essentially, like every student, every parent deserves a right to try to pick which school is right for their child. And that if you're taking these education options away, that you're hurting some of these students who need that the most, right? And so there's been a lot of criticism from this and some pushback. So yeah, it's a controversial topic, right? And when I was watching the school board meeting, there was a lot of advocates for school choice who were there, and they were criticizing this and saying, look, like, this is my school has made the difference. And one student there was talking about a public school that was very highly ranked. And it was based on that school choice system. It's a very well-ranked school that she was able to go to for gifted students. And she said that her family drives her there, and it takes, I think, 3 hours of her dad's time to go throughout the day, right? Of like in the morning and the evening, but with this commute. That is something that they want to do to support her education. And she said that she went to a neighborhood school, and she was just so far ahead academically that it was not the right fit for her. So she said that this has given her an opportunity to excel and to be advanced. So I think that there's a lot at stake here for, families in Chicago and the Chicago area who are looking for different choices for their families.
Now, you also wrote about the resolution said about the district's plan for underutilized school buildings. How does that tie into this?
Yeah, so this is something that Chalkboard's written about a little bit before. We've covered the cost of the Chicago school buildings, and there was a report that recently found that estimated from the Chicago Public Schools that estimated that its buildings are going to cost taxpayers $14.4 billion to renovate and maintain. And a lot of those buildings are actually underutilized, which means that there's not enough students in there to say that they're adequately being used, right? That there's a lot more seats than there are students. And so that is, a concern. We asked the Chicago Public Schools about that. And there is actually a moratorium on shutting down schools until 2025. So that's coming up in the next few years here. But the district there can't shut down any schools because of a statewide or a state capital-based moratorium on that. But essentially, this resolution that was passed said that the 2025-2029 strategic plan would include the community in designing plans for previously closed and currently underutilized schools, which again would reimagine these buildings as community assets, hubs, and resources. And again, like the board president, Jianan Shi, he mentioned that there would be there's a $14 billion cost on the facility needs, and that there's underfunding from the state. So there was a mention of how much money that would cost, but there wasn't really a plan to figure out where that money would come from. But basically, the plan would be to open that up to the community and keep those buildings under the Chicago Public Schools control. So that just kind of signals that they want to keep paying for it, I guess.
Okay. Well, thank you, Brendan, but that's all the time we have. You can keep up with this story like many of the nation's top education stories at chalkboardnews.com. For Brendan Clary, I'm Tom Gantert. Please subscribe, and thank you for listening.
Do you care about school spending, classroom curriculums, and transparency policies in education, but find it hard to cut through the partisan noise? The nonprofit Franklin News Foundation is bringing you straight news reporting on education through Chalkboard News. We're talking news without spin. Franklin brings fact-based news that makes sense to everyday parents, teachers, and readers who have skin in the game. By donating to Franklin, you can help American families and communities receive the education-focused news they deserve. Become a supporter today at franklinnews.org/donate.